That's right. It's time for another Red, Gold, and Bold. Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren Petro with you. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes and what the rest of his career is going to look like, how long until he's the best version of himself. How much longer do we think Patrick Mahomes is going to play the second half of his career? Maybe you've got a player that's a good comp for him, what his second half will look like. How much of Mahomes' future depends upon the coaching staff. What kind of numbers do we think he's going to put up? Where does he rank on the all-time list right now? Where's he going to rank when it's all said and done? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on a Friday morning. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, first of all, thank you for checking out the podcast. Tell your friends, why don't you? Also, you can be a part of the conversation. We're live Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m., Fridays at 10 a.m. And guys, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes and what the rest of his career is going to look like. Let's start on when we think he's going to be back to being the real Patrick Mahomes. Sam, I'll start with you. You've been out of practices. You've been watching him with the big brace on. How long do you think until we're not talking about the knee injury and Pat is Pat?
Yeah, I think getting in the prediction game for injuries is really difficult because, for personally, it assumes an expertise that, I don't have. So I defer to those who have it. And when you talk to medical people, and I've talked to several who are in this world or have been in this world, and the most common answer you get is that he won't be 100% at the start of the season, and that for a lot of players, it takes 2 years before they feel fully healthy again. And so when you talk about what can he be to be the best version of himself, I think there's questions about whether or not that happens this season. But can he get around that? Can he find other ways to win? Absolutely. But what is that going to look like, and when is that going to look like it? We haven't seen this guy play against an actual defense yet. He hasn't played in 11-on-11 drills at all. And by the way, he's realistic about that. He even said that he can't guarantee you he'll be out there when training camp starts on July 24th. And then, the team joins 5 days later. He can't tell you whether or not he'll be doing 11-on-11s yet. But I think that realism has probably helped him progress throughout this rehab, is that he's not saying, okay, for sure week one. It's I hope week one. I think he'll be out there, but the best version of himself, I think it'll take a little while.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? What do you think until we look at him? Adrian Peterson came back on about the same timeline and ran for 2,000 yards. So there is a case. That's the one we all, as Chiefs fans, would bring up and point to and say, okay, this is the direction that it's going to go. This is how it's going to work. But that hasn't been the case for everybody. That's, a unique outlier out there, not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. How long until we think this isn't, something that we've got in the back of our heads?
Yeah, I don't want to knock Patrick Mahomes here, but if you had him posed next to Adrian Peterson with their shirts off, you'd see why Adrian Peterson was able to do some of the things he did back when he was that age. He was a physical specimen, and Patrick is not in that same classification, in that same class. But no, I think it's going to be 2 years. And I've said this before. I've had I've torn both my ACLs. And the thing about it is not so much the physical part, it's just the mental part of trusting your body again. Because most people, when they hurt themselves, it's usually something that, that causes that pain, not your body betraying you, right? As you can go whatever, hit a wall and maybe break your arm, or a little kid can go touch a stove and then realize that I can't touch the stove anymore. I think when you're a professional athlete of the level that Patrick Mahomes is, and you're so used to doing all these amazing things, and now all of a sudden you do something you've done a million times over and your body betrays you and you have a severe injury, it's going to be alarming. And so really it's the time frame it takes to get away from that, to be able to think about doing those same movements again with the utmost confidence. And surely he's not physically going to ever be able to be the same level of athlete just because you've torn something. You've shredded something that's very important to your body. But I think mentally it's just, that's going to be the big hurdle. I don't see that happening this year.
Is there a singular moment, Sam, that will prove that he's 100%? For me, it's when we see him escape, take off on the run, have guys trailing and let one go down the field. Like, that's when I'm going to feel like, and he may not still be 100% at that point, but if I see that his body can do the things that his mind, he has such a great spatial awareness. And that comes with throwing the football, of knowing when the safety can't get down and the linebacker can't drop and the corner's off enough, I can drop this in there. He has it when he throws the ball, but he also has it when he runs the ball. He has that great awareness of, here comes the tackle, but I can get outside and get more time going. My expectation is that we're going to see him want to do that. The body's not going to respond the way he wants to, and he's going to get sacked. Like, I think we're going to see extra sacks early. But when I see that is gone and he's getting out of, harm's way at just the right time to buy more time and be able to still make a play, that's when I will feel like he's 100%. When is there something on the field that will tell you, Sam, that he's 100%?
No, not anecdotally. I think Jeff's right about the mental aspect being a significant part of this. I do think they will have Sundays this year where you might never know that he tore his ACL last year, but there will be instances in which you do. And more importantly, to Jeff's point, there will be instances in which he does, where it's in his mind that what he's been through. And that's the part that he's going to have to get over and see those moments that you're talking about, Soren, as far as, a rush is coming right at him and he still steps up in the pocket and throws it anyway. He's not fearful about the fact that he's going to get hit. And part of that hit is going to cause his knee to lock and that he can't drive forward through something. And you mentioned the scrambles, and I've talked a lot about the scrambles and how significant that has been to his success over the past 8 years. And if he can't do any of that, then he can't protect himself and the Chiefs can't put him out there. Like, that's going to have to be at least part of his game, even if it's not the same part it has been.
Jeff, anything on the field that will tell you, okay, he's back?
I don't know if it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be the adjustment he makes to how he plays. And so I was just thinking, as Sam was talking, just like he's had plenty of moments where he's running to the sideline and he might skip. He's going to go out of bounds and then skip forward for another 5 or 10 yards and take a shot. Like, that's going to have to be going out of bounds now. Or there's going to have to be, like you said, he's scrambling around, trying to make a play. Now I got to throw the ball out of bounds because now I'm not going to be able to elude the third guy that I hope to get away from. And most of his plays, if you were to go back and track his career with the Chiefs, it's been thousands of those plays probably where he's done amazing things on the move. His body is not going to respond the same way. No matter what he does, no matter how hard he works, there's going to be a second difference or a 2 millisecond difference that changes. And he's going to develop some habits too, where he's probably going to try to overcompensate for certain things. And I remember Donovan McNabb tearing his ACL. Mm-hmm. And when he started playing again, he would throw and he would pull his leg up as he followed through. It was a subtle thing, but I remember the announcer saying that's the byproduct of going through this surgery. He doesn't trust his back leg to plant it and stay put. He's developed this habit, and Mahomes will probably develop some similar things in his own right.
When you go back to the first 2 Chiefs games last season, for example, and this is what I mean when I say you might never know it because you're not expecting certain plays to happen, but there might be instances in which he's aware of it. The first 2 games last year, remember, the Chiefs had nothing going in the first half against the Chargers in Brazil. And Patrick Mahomes, in an effort to fire up his own team, which was somehow flat in the opening game of the season, tried to bowl over a defender and did. Like he decide, like if he goes out of bounds on that play, none of us are going to say, oh, well, he just ran out of bounds. Most quarterbacks do run out of bounds, but he might be aware of it and say, I can't do that to fire up the team. He did it the same thing the next week where it was a third down play against the Eagles, and he bowled over a defender to get a first down. And again, if he doesn't do that, the absence of that is not going to tell you this guy went through an ACL surgery. It might tell him that, though.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. How much longer does he play, Jeff? What do you think the timeline is on how he can play? He's going to have to adjust his game, obviously, as his physicality changes. How long do you think he ends up playing?
I put it at 7 years, and I'm willing to go to 8, depending on how close he is to certain milestones. Maybe that's 500 touchdowns or 70,000 yards, 65,000 yards. So he may have a desire to play to reach certain things.
You think he's done at 37?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like, I think playing at a high level. Now, whether he wants to keep playing and do the, I'm out there and I'm 75% of what I used to be. But I think that he'll have to make a choice around that time about I don't think he's going to be a high level quarterback at that age. And so to me, I think his best years are going to be the next 5 years, and then he'll have a couple of years, and then you'll start seeing him start to taper off in the way that Ben Roethlisberger or Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, some of the other guys, like most guys, by the time they reach 40, are not playing at a high level. They're just hanging around either because they have a good situation or they're really just can't stop playing. I don't think he's going to have a hard time leaving football when he's done.
Well, I totally should have listened to his friend's advice and changed my shirt before this thing started.
Yeah.
That came out of absolute nowhere. When Sam first popped into the room, I was like, for a second, I was like, oh my God. Then I was like, okay. I was like, Sam's not wearing a shirt. It's like,
oh, is that right?
The color of his shirt. I was like, oh, that's kind of. I'm like, he's not wearing a shirt. Oh no,
now I get it.
Sam's. Because I was ready to go. Why is Sam smiling?
Yeah,
Jeff's analysis
exactly.
Here. He's clearly got something where he's going to completely disagree with it. And he goes, no, yep, I do look like I'm not wearing a shirt.
That's just the last comment.
Okay, now I see it.
Oh, I didn't even see this. What was it?
Yeah, it's the last comment. That Soren had warned me before we got started here.
Right.
I said when he first popped in, just for a second,
just trying to increase the viewership, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's our Chippendales version.
Is that David Njoku style?
Yeah. This week Sam's are shirtless. Tune in next week to figure out who's next. Yeah, I like that. No, but to your point, Jeff, I do think. Listen, we kind of talked about what he's going to look like here moving forward, and I think you can make a case. The first quarterback ever in the history of the NFL to throw for more than 30 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions in the same season was Donovan McNabb. I mean, he was doing things with Andy Reid that had never been done before. He's playing at an extremely high level, and he was pretty much done at 32. And I think that's probably the low end of what we can expect for Patrick Mahomes. The high end is somehow he morphs into Tom Brady and he plays till he's 45 years old. To expect the outlier on either end, I don't expect Donovan McNabb and I don't expect Tom Brady. I expect somewhere in between. But I think, I think Sam asking you that question, and I think the reaction of a lot of Chiefs fans would be like, what do you mean, 37? Like, yeah, there are guys that are done at 37. I mean, like, not everybody's Brady. Not everybody's like, what did Breeze get to?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. But and Sam has pointed out many times that Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers you remember of old. That's not who he is right now. Like he's putting up decent numbers, but he's not doing the things he did when he was an MVP caliber quarterback.
Well, Soren, not to stop you there, but those two guys, keep in mind how their career started. And so they had a lot more chip on their shoulder mentality at the end because they were like, I want to show people how great I am. Whereas if you're Mahomes, your career started great.
Yeah.
You don't have that same, I sat for 3 years and couldn't get to play mentality that Aaron Rodgers had.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I mean, Sam, what do you think he's got left? How many years? What does it look like?
I agree with Jeff that that's his window of being an elite quarterback. Whether or not he's the best quarterback in the league at 36, 37, I think is a different question. But an elite top 5 guy, I think it's about that age. But I think he plays longer than that. I think he feels like he can still win games for a longer period than that. So I think he plays till he's 40, through his age 40 season.
Where do you think the playing at a high level ends?
Well, that's what I said. I agree with Jeff on that window. I think he's an elite quarterback through age 37. And, I think, whether or not he's the best in the league, I think there's more than one guy in the league who's elite. And I think he's top 5 talent through about that age.
Jeff, do you have a quarterback that you'd say this is what he looks like?
I put Roethlisberger down as my guy, and I put him down because when he was 36, he threw for 5,000 yards. We forget this because of the way his last 3 years ended, but he got hurt the next year. I think he had a finger injury or something. And then the last couple of years, he was mediocre at best, above average. He was just kind of just hanging around. He was playing on a really good team, by the way. So I think he thought he had a chance to win a championship and didn't want to give it up. And he just went out with a whimper. But at 36, he was still putting up pretty big numbers. But again, I just think you start looking at the list of guys who play that long and that deep into it. Most of those players don't play the way Patrick Mahomes plays. And so I factor in injuries as well. Injuries, and can he adjust to playing more of a drop back style as he gets older, which we don't know if he can do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you have a name, Sam, you'd put by what you think the second half of his career is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, that's a compliment. Aaron Rodgers won an MVP at age 37 and 38. And
well,
the reason,
just to add on to what Jeff said before we move forward, Ben Roethlisberger at 38 in his next to last year threw for 3,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 10 INTs. I mean, I think if you were Patrick Mahomes, you might bank that. If here's your 38-year-old season, will you take it? He might take that. To your point, Sam, of what you're talking about where Aaron Rodgers was, Ben Roethlisberger didn't win any championships in that back half, but he did, in addition to the 5,000-yard season that Jeff's talking about with 5,100 yards at 36. 38 wasn't too bad either. And to your point, Sam, about Rodgers, he wasn't real bad at the back end either.
Yeah, and the reason that, Aaron Rodgers is about to play his age 43 season, and I said Mahomes after 40s, I think Patrick Mahomes will have a better recognition of when he doesn't have it anymore. And I think it will bother him more than what we've seen from Aaron Rodgers, who's hung on beyond his ability. And, I mentioned the stats on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, the fact that Aaron Rodgers can't get out of the pocket as frequently. And it's suffered because he made a living outside the pocket the same way that Patrick Mahomes has. And the other difference is that I don't think people realize is we're talking about Patrick Mahomes coming off of an ACL now. Aaron Rodgers is an example of this and not the example of it, which is when you suffer that type of injury later in your career, it's often over for guys. I mean, Kevin Durant in the NBA is the exception to that rule, because when you have the Achilles injury like Aaron Rodgers did, you're not the same after that, because your body can't recover at age 40 the way that it can and has the very realistic possibility to do when Patrick Mahomes is 30 right now. There's a big difference in that.
A question I want to ask real quick to Sam, because he's going longer. You haven't even given it up your Soren, have you? Your age?
How old I am?
Yeah, how long will he play?
How long will he play? I think he's going to play.
How long are you going to do this?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what everybody cares about, right?
Yeah.
I think he's going to touch 40. Okay. I think because, and I'll throw
in with this team.
I don't know. It's pretty hard to end with the one team, right? I think usually
that's what I'm looking at with this team.
I think that's interesting because I think Sam's point of he will recognize it better than Aaron Rodgers. I do think he's more in touch with reality than Aaron Rodgers. So, for a way to put it, I think Sam's right. I think he will recognize where he's at. And I think, and we'll get to coaching and that kind of thing here in a minute. So I do think he's going to do a better job of okay, now's the time to check out.
Peyton Manning quit at 39 for the same reason. He knew he's not the same guy. Didn't want to keep pushing forward as less than himself.
But I'll go forward. And Peyton Manning's kind of unique because Peyton Manning was playing at a really high level, and he sustained an in-season injury that really wrecked him. And he finished the season, and they had a great defense, and that helped them get to a championship in that final season, which is pretty hard to do. So, but I think Mahomes might have a little more. I mean, Jim Brown's a different scenario because of the social climate that was going on and the fact that he got to step into making more money, making movies at the time. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to do that. But I think there is a potential for Mahomes to shock us all, and at 35, go, I'm out. I also think there's the chance for Mahomes to be the kind of competitor to go through three teams that keep giving him a shot as a starter And I don't think he's going to ever be a backup. I don't think he's going to hold a clipboard again.
No.
If somebody goes, you're a backup, I think he'll peace out. But I think if somebody goes, no, you can start, and he looks around and goes, I think the talent might be good enough, I think there is the chance for him to kid himself. But I think for the most part, he'll know when it's time to go. I think it'll be with this organization as long as they put the right pieces around him. But I see him in the 38, 39, maybe kissing 40 range, because I think the player I would comp him to, and he hasn't been anything really like this guy beforehand, but I think he's going to morph towards Drew Brees. I think he is going to know when he can't get out of dodge, when he can't evade, and become more of a pocket passer, do a better job of dink and dunk and do it. I think his competitive nature and his will to win, he'll feel what his body can do, and he'll adjust his game to it. So I think that's a stretch, because there's nothing that says that, but I look for a quarterback. He's not short, but he's not tall. He's a little undersized height-wise for a quarterback. So I think the Drew Brees game, I think that's one of the things you need to consider when you say, what's he going to be if he just stays in the pocket? He's not 6'5", surveying over. I also know from talking to quarterbacks, it's not necessarily about seeing over the line. It's about seeing in between the linemen and all the different things that they got to do. But he is on the lower end. He's closer to Drew Brees than he is Tom Brady as far as height goes. So I can see him kind of morphing to that. The key is going to be to put the talent around him for it. So,
Drew Brees wasn't really on my list. He led the league in completion percentage, like 8 times. And I think he led the league in completion percentage at like age 41.
Because I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have to really adjust his game. I don't think the second half is going to look like the first half. If he tries to make the second half of his career look like the first half, I think McNabb starts to become a real possibility, because the legs aren't going to be there. Yeah. And so buying that extra time to send it downfield, he's going to have to play on time, which means he's going to have to learn to take the running back on the outside. 1, 2, 3, I'm kicking it out to the running back. I'm going to the slant. And we'll get to the coaching staff. We'll talk about the coaching staff here in a minute. Let's take a quick break. We'll get into how much that coaching staff will matter to him, along with a number of other things after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Your parking lot says a lot about your business. Cracks, potholes, faded striping, and damaged concrete can create safety concerns and leave the wrong impression with customers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete helps Kansas City businesses protect their properties with asphalt paving, seal coating, crack filling, parking lot striping, concrete work, and repairs. Their experienced crews deliver quality workmanship and dependable service on every project. Whether you need routine maintenance or a complete parking lot overhaul, Gann is ready to help you. Get started today with a free estimate at GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. If you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Not going to lie to you, I'm starving right now, and the pizzas look really good at Italian Delight. Let's talk a little bit about Patrick Mahomes and how much he's going to depend upon his head coach. How much does his future success, Jeff, depend upon Andy Reid and whoever's next? Because I think most of it say Patrick Mahomes will, continue on beyond Andy Reid's tenure. How much of his success depends upon getting it right at the head coach?
Oh, it's enormous. And I think we all know Andy Reid's not going to be around for the rest of his career. At some point, Andy Reid's going to have to bow out just because of the age. And I imagine they're going to have to find some new voices to come in there in the way that you saw what happened with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And I don't think that's a bad thing. When a lot of people here have made the comparison to John Elway for Patrick Mahomes, John Elway got Mike Shanahan when he had 4 years left in his career. And John Elway had not won a championship at that point in his career. And then all of a sudden he had Terrell Davis and Shannon Sharp and all the other great weapons. And it was like, oh my God, I'm not leaving this. And so that's a factor for Patrick Mahomes. For me, it's just like when you've won as much as he's won, are you still going to have that same desire, that same burning desire to keep winning and have that drive you later in your career? So that's a big factor. And then Drew Brees had Sean Payton, and they were symbiotic. And that was an important part of what made Drew Brees. I don't know who the person who comes in and replaces Andy Reid is going to, if they're going to have that same level of chemistry and rhythm. And Mahomes may butt heads with that guy. It may be a Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady type situation where he has to go play elsewhere, but certainly who's coaching him is going to factor in how well he does in the second half of his career.
What about you? How important is it for the Chiefs, for Andy Reid to stay on the top of his game and the Chiefs to get it right whenever that time comes to make a change?
Yeah, I actually think it's just all of his surroundings. I mean, I think a lot has been made about the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick split, but the reality is that Tom Brady also left a roster that was very clearly in decline. And the team he picked was a roster that was loaded and ready to go and just needed a quarterback to plug in. And so, like, how long he's going to play and the dependence of his future success, you've got to have a good roster that's ready to go, because I think that is what could start to frustrate a quarterback is, man, I got to do it all. Man, I got to do it all again. Man, this has been a long time where this whole thing has been reliant on exactly how I'm playing game to game and week to week and season to season. I pulled out the Patriots, the best thing I could find about their supporting cast, because obviously they had Randy Moss and Wes Welker. They had great guys. I think you could argue Tom Brady, of course, elevated a lot of those guys as well. But he had nothing to do with their defense. And their defense for the 19 years he was there, they were first, second, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 17, and 17. Only 3 years out of 19 years did they finish outside the top 10 in defense. They averaged.
By the way, was that an order? Was it declining as it went, or no? That's just
their top seasons. Okay. They averaged 7th. Like, that helped him win championships. That helped his situation. Like, his success was fueled in large part by himself, but it was certainly assisted. I'm not trying to tear down the Tom Brady resume. He's the best. He has by far the best resume there is, but there is a caveat to that. Your surroundings matter. And so certainly the head coach plays a significant part of that too.
Yeah. I think the Chiefs have to get it right. And you're right. It's why I keep talking about, I get they lost a lot of defense this year, but man, at some point you might have to run back 2018, right? Like the quarterback wants to have fun, and grinding along, dumping off to subpar wideouts is not fun for a quarterback. And I also think just the NFL, Andy Reid, like when Andy Reid got into this game, and even when Andy Reid came to Kansas City, I remember he got criticized for not having clock management. By the way, we don't hear that anymore, right? You want to know why? Because the clock management is about the quarterback more than it's about the coach. Will you take chunk plays? Do you understand you've got to go downfield? And having the weapons, and when Patrick Mahomes got here, he had the weapons to go ahead and send it 24 yards down the field on a 2-minute drill, right? When you don't have that and the defense drops back and you got to go underneath, that's a problem. But Mahomes is the cheat code if you put the weapons around him. And the modern NFL has a little bit more of basketball, 2-for-1s. For example, get the shot up with 28 seconds so that you're going to get the ball back and have another shot at it. Take a pretty good shot as opposed to waiting for a great shot so that that you've got another possession at the end of the game because we want the ball in our hands to win it. Well, in the NFL, it's not quite 2-for-1s, but what it is 151 score with 140 or less, right? Like, don't just go down the field and score. When Andy Reid got here, he would talk about, look, the most important thing on the 2-minute drill is to score. That's true. But now it is to score and eliminate clock, right? Like the offense has such an advantage when you have a great quarterback and when you have weapons around him that you can not only score, but you can score on time. And I think when Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the weapons around him, which is he's going to need more and more as his skills decline, then I think he's going to look around and be like, this kind of sucks. I don't like doing this. And so I do think it's great. I understand why they drafted all defense, but pretty soon they're going to have to always make sure the offense is good until Steve Spagnuolo, you're the highest paid defensive coordinator in football. Make it work with what you got to the best ability. And I think that's going to be an important part of the equation. I do think it's going to be important to not only get it done with the head coach, but to get it done with the organization to make sure that he doesn't have that Tom Brady moment where he looks around and goes, this cast sucks. Like, where can I get a cast that works? I do think that's a bigger part of the equation than people think. And there's this right now. You get complacent, like, we'll just throw whoever out there and Pat will make it work. Pat will get tired of making it work. Pat will want to excel, right? I think you're going to need to give him some candy and let him throw for 5,000. Let him have 40 touchdowns. Let the game be enjoyable for him as well. I do think is an underrated part of the equation of elongating his career. Or am I?
Look, you see this happen with athletes. I mentioned Tom Brady. I think that was part of the reason he left New England. It's much earlier in his career, but LeBron James left Cleveland was because, like, I can't do this all by myself. Like, that's a reality for athletes, getting frustrated with not just 1 year, but when it's over and over and over again, having to carry the entirety of the load. It's tough on guys.
And that's what the NFL's built, though, right? You can't. I hear what you're saying, Soren, but it's very hard to build the kind of offense they had in 2018 when your quarterback makes a bunch of money and other guys are going to make a bunch of money. You can only pay so many people. And then when you're winning 10 to 12 games a year, you're drafting in the 20s and up, you're just not getting those kinds of impact players. And you've seen it happen with the Chiefs the last 3 years. Not that they have been trying to draft players. They've been drafting the wrong guys.
Yeah,
it's hard to get those kind of players.
But they had 9 draft picks entering this draft, and the first 6 went to defense.
Yeah. No, I get that. But I'm saying, look at what they did with Rashee Rice, that kind of receiver, or Xavier Worthy, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, when you have success in this league, there's a tendency for all teams to do this where they feel like, well, what we touch turns to gold. And as long as we got the quarterback, it's going to be great. And the reality is like Sam mentioned Tom Brady, he got upset because Bill Belichick was doing crazy stuff, not just with the roster, but with the coaching staff, right? Aaron Rodgers, his success and John Elway's success came largely because their coaches decided we have to have a run game here. We have to hand the ball off more. You have to do less. And Peyton Manning as well when they got to Denver with some of the receivers they've added. So I think it's more about the quarterback understanding you can't do it all yourself and having, as Sam said, better supporting cast around you, which is the coach's vision, is way more important.
What do we think numerically he's going to do the rest of the way, Sam? What do you got for, like, how many more yards are in Patrick Mahomes' career? How many more touchdowns? How many division championships, conference championships, Super Bowls? Can you quantify what you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we want to go through the stats of it first,
okay,
it's good to establish the baseline of where he is. He's basically been a starter for 8 years. I know he's been in the league for 9, and he has 36,000 yards in 8 years. That includes record-setting years. And it also includes, I think, the fact that he's really only missed like 5 games. He hasn't had that Tom Brady year where he got injured in the opener and missed an entire year. So all that factored into, if I have him playing like 10 more years and maybe 7 more at that peak, I've got him slightly above that number through like 10 years. So I have him at 39,000 more yards for the rest of his career. And similar for touchdown passes, I think he's at like 250 something right now, and I've got him at 300 more.
Okay, so you've got the second half being better than the first half.
Because I have it longer. I have it only slightly better, but it's because it's longer. And let's face it, like, his numbers have been down, especially touchdowns the last 3 years. It's not like when you mirror the second, when you mirror the next 10 years compared to the first 8, that you're saying, wow, how are you going to match these 8? It's those like first 3 or 4, that are tough to match. These last 3 years, especially the last 2, it's not like he's putting up video game numbers that you're saying, how can a 37-year-old match that? There are 37-year-old quarterbacks that are matching that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dan Marino is a name we might want to mention because he came on like a rocket ship, just like Patrick Mahomes did. And he played good football and was always considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league while he was playing. But the second half of his career doesn't look like the first half of his career. Jeff, what do you got stat wise on what you think he's going to hang?
Just yards, or are we doing touchdowns?
Yards, touchdowns.
I did yard and touchdowns.
Yeah. So I had yards. I had him at 30,000 more yards, 30,100, and that's based off an average of 4,300 yards per season for 7 years. So I had him playing 7 years. And that to me is, I think he's the last 3 years I went off where he's at. And I agree with Sam. Like we're all in agreement. He hasn't played at the same level he had in the top, first 3-4 years of his career. But the game has changed. And so a big factor for me is if we're going to see this too high shell defense, make it throw underneath, running the football, if that's going to be the next 3 or 4 years of the NFL, his numbers aren't going to jump up, as a result. So I looked at it more like I think he's going to end up right around 67,000 yards for his entire career, which I think is top 6 or 7.
Can I point out that even though I'm 9,000 more than Jeff, we actually have similar thinking on this?
Yes.
That I've got 4,300, I think, about that range for the next 7 years as well. It's just that I haven't planned 3 more years of doing less, getting like 3,000, getting like 3,000 yards each for those last 3 years. And like, that's actually much more similar than what it appears.
Yeah. Which is an important distinction to make. That it's not just, we're seeing what's he going to be like year to year. And so with touchdown passes, I had him at 233 more, which would put him right at 500. I think he'll probably end up in the 500 touchdown club. I think he'll want to be in that club, which is why I said I could see him playing an 8th season to get to that number, because I think that's a very elite, unique group in the NFL history.
By the way, 500 even would make him 6th. The only guys with 500, Brady 649, Breeze 571, Peyton Manning 539, Aaron Rodgers has 527, and Brett Favre with 508. Yep. To give you an idea where that would put him. So,
and that's a little over 33 per season over 7 years. So I think he can get there.
I think 33 is generous.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
It's extraordinarily generous for you.
Yeah.
Let me just say.
Do you have his page pulled up, Soren?
Yeah, on Mahomes.
Yeah, you should read off to people what he's done recently, because he's been in the 20s for 3 straight years.
Yeah, he had 30. Yes, that's what 2000.
Yes. So he takes over in 2018 and has 50, 26 and 19, but he was hurt for part of the year. 38, 37, 41, 27, 26, 22. So even if he doesn't get hurt last year and he plays the last 3 games of the season, he's on pace for about 28. Yeah. Okay, so it has not been the greatest show on turf that it was early on. I do think that they are going to correct. I think you're going to see a lot of offense drafted. I think now he's going to start being a louder voice. The contract, he's locked into the Chiefs now, even beyond.
Unleash the fury.
Yes, and I think you're going to see them start drafting offense a lot more. I'm going to wedge right in between you two. I've got about 35,000 more yards and 270 touchdowns for him, but I don't think I don't think the high level seasons necessarily are going to be there anymore. Like a Peyton Manning's greatest year came with the Broncos in his late 30s. I don't see that for Patrick Mahomes. I see a guy that doesn't want to quit. I see an organization that will start selling their soul to him and start drafting offense and say, look, we've got to keep him happy because this is what pays the bills around here. And so I see a lot of offensive talent being brought in for this football team to try to put around him. And because I think, we're Steeler fans happier going 10-7 with Ben Roethlisberger or 10-7 without him? They were happier with Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, it became an outcry like, this sucks, this doesn't work. And so I think that will be what the organization starts to do. But I do think it's, unless they get a really, really exceptional couple of drafts and find a Priest Holmes in the rough, at wideout or wherever, they're going to have to make some exceptional personnel decisions for his numbers to really, stay, to go back to being video game numbers. I don't see that happening without it. So I've got 270 on the touchdowns. What do we expect for division championships? It was a given that he would win division championships, conference championships, Super Bowls. How about that? How would you quantify that, Sam?
I've got 5 division championships. I've got 3 conference championships, and I have 2 Super Bowls. And acknowledging that I think I'm tilting towards the success end of that. That's obviously less successful than what he's done so far. But that's a pretty great quarterback in his 30s.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous. Where are you, Jeff?
I've got 3 division championships. I'm obviously playing less years. I've got 1 conference championship, 1 Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay. I'm at 4 division championships. I do think that he will get back there. But I'm at 2 conference championships and 1 Super Bowl. Like it's just, it's hard to. Tom Brady's what we want to all measure him by, but more likely it's it is Roethlisberger, it is Rodgers, it is and John Elway was unique in the sense that he went to 3 early, didn't get back for a while, and then got to 2 more and won both of them. I guess I'm a little surprised that I'm not the top guy. I'm always Mr. Positive usually when we do those kind of things, but I'm a little bit concerned about Andy Reid. I'm definitely concerned about who the next head coach is. I think there are a lot of factors out of his control that the Chiefs need to make a lot of right decisions around him for those parts of the equations to come back really strong.
Well, and it's like, I know some people in the comments feel like it's like Patrick Mahomes is going to dominate. Like, look at the top 8 or 9 best quarterbacks statistically, however you want to measure it. We'll measure it here in our own way shortly. How many of those guys played in more than 2 Super Bowls or won more than 1 championship in the second half of their career? Like Elway played in 2 and won 2. Peyton Manning played in 2, won 1. Drew Brees played in 1. Hey, he played in any. Actually, he didn't play in any. He won in the first half of his career. Roethlisberger never got back. Who else is there?
Russell,
obviously.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Yeah, I mean, it's like Matthew Stafford has been fortunate enough, but he had to change teams, and he's only played in 2 in his career.
Well,
it's
but I think Stafford's a good one because we want to say, well, Pat's first half plus Stafford's second half. Well, but Stafford's first half happened.
Yeah.
Like he was that elite talent in Detroit, but they didn't get it right with the talent around him. They didn't get it right with the coach. It's like, it's not just a given that whenever Andy Reid walks, that 1, Andy Reid's going to keep coaching at a high level till he's 80, or 2, that they're going to get it right with the next hire.
No. Yeah. It's that's why it's so hard. And so unless you are Matthew Stafford, you wind up in LA, or Tom Brady, you wind up with the Bucs, and you have a super powered organization or an organization that's super powering their roster to fit you. It's hard to win it when you're going the road Patrick Mahomes is going. It's just hard to keep winning at a high level.
All right, so let's talk a little bit right now about where Mahomes ranks all time. Where is he all time on your list, Sam, at this moment? He walks away right now. He ranks where?
Right, that's not exactly how I did it. I think he's on the projection to be the second best ever. And he is the best. Obviously, last year he was 30 years old in like week 2. He's by far the best ever quarterback under 30 that we've seen success-wise, like resume-wise. And it's not close. I mean, it's regular season numbers, playoff numbers. He had 25 more 100 playoff yards than any other quarterback before age 30, 21 more touchdowns than any other playoff touchdowns than any other quarterback before age 30. But the way Tom Brady became Tom Brady is what he did after 30. And it's just not the norm. And you cannot assume that what Tom Brady did is what every subsequent great quarterback is going to do afterwards, because the guys that have tried, like Aaron Rodgers, have proven that Tom Brady is still the outlier. And it's because of the way he played. It's because of what made him great. That is sustainable. Staying in the pocket, having your sack avoidance being by staying in the pocket and getting rid of the ball rather than scrambling. Like that stuff is more sustainable deep into your career. And so I mean, it's a hell of a compliment to say this guy's going to be second. But that's where I've got him.
You got him on pace for second, but you don't have a rank for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if he quits right now, I mean, you'd have to put him, I think,
because I'll say he's third right now. I think if his career just ended, which it's anyone whose career ends early, there's Jim Brown's not. I don't know. He's not even in the top 10 anymore in rushing. But when you talk about the greatest running backs of all time, Jim Brown's name still gets brought up. So I think Mahomes is third right now. If it ends,
is it Peyton? Who's second?
I think I would go Brady, Peyton Manning. I think that would be it. I think others might say Joe Montana. I think John Elway was I think he's actually become underrated and since his career has ended. But I think he's
Underrated.
yes.
You
I
don't
would
hear
say,
that much.
huh?
Underrated for John Elway. You don't hear that much.
No, I think he's underrated. Yes, I think
Well,
what
his
he did. I think
numbers don't put him in
the
the
numbers
same
don't put
class.
him there, but the supporting cast. I remember like the Three Amigos.
Yeah.
Like they weren't any good, and he carried their ass to 3 Super Bowls. I think John Elway was tremendous, but I think right now I'd put him third. I think it's Brady and Manning, and just because of the championships, getting to the championship game, 4 for Manning, 2 wins. Obviously Brady's numbers are without, but I think he goes above Breeze and some of the other. I think Aaron Rodgers is a pain in the ass. I think Aaron Rodgers is a cancer to your team. And so I put him above Aaron Rodgers. He's clearly a better teammate and better guy to lead your organization. So I put him there. I put him number 3 if he walked away right now. But I do like your point about tracking to number 2. And I think number 2 is where he will end up. As much as us Chiefs fans will want to try to put him above Brady, I think 2 is where he probably ends up. We can talk here in a second after we hear Jeff's thoughts about what it would take to be number 1. But I think he's 3 right now. And I think I agree with you, Sam, that he's tracking to be number 2. Jeff, where are you on that front?
I have him 3 right now behind Brady and Manning. And if I were to put him at I would say Montana and Aaron Rodgers and Dan Marino would be behind him right now. Like he's better than those players. He's done enough to be better than those players. But people like Peyton Manning, people forget that Peyton Manning, what he did in his career, statistically, he won 4 MVPs for one. He's had 2 of the best years a quarterback has ever had in this league. And the one he had
well into his late 30s.
Exactly. And the one in 2014 when he was 5,500 yards or 5,400 yards and 55 touchdowns that's going to be hard to ever break those records. And that was a 16-game season. He did things that people have never done. And so what hurts Mahomes for me right now is the last 3 years. And that's even though he won a championship one of those years and took his team back to the Super Bowl as well, his numbers individually, like Tom Brady at second half of his career never had. No one Peyton Manning never had a year or a 3-year run like Mahomes had the last 3 years. Maybe the end of his career, he was playing a lower level, but throughout his career, he was always the best, if not the second best quarterback in the NFL statistically. But certainly Mahomes is tracking that direction. I think he'll end up being the second best quarterback. It's a big projection to make. He's going to have to put together another 7-8 really good years to match what those players were doing at the end of their careers. But he can get there because he's a special talent.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this conversation is when you think about, I was at a Kauffman Stadium last night. Salvador Perez hits a home run to break the Kauffman Stadium all-time home run record for most homers hit by any player there. And that naturally prompts your thoughts about whether or not Salvador Perez is going to be a Hall of Famer. And when you talk about baseball, 95% of the discussion is regular season numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Salvador Perez will get a kiss because he was a World Series MVP as well, but it'll be that. It won't be the lead item of his resume.
Yeah.
And when you talk about NFL and quarterbacks and you rank them because it's the most important position in sports, it's all geared to the playoff success that you have. If you just looked at the regular season stuff, and Tom Brady has the longevity still, but you would say in a regular season game, the guy who put the most fear into defenses to me was Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
He was the guy that nobody wanted to face in a regular season game. He doesn't have the playoff success to back that up because the Colts got upset a lot in the playoffs. And I actually think Mahomes is right there with Brady as far as that regular season game. I don't want to face this guy with 2 minutes left on the clock. It's Peyton Manning, Mahomes, and Brady, to me, are on equal footing. The playoff success is a real thing, though.
Yeah. Well, and think about, would Mahomes be Mahomes if he had to play against Tom Brady in New England in their prime? It might be, and Manning got to be in Mahomes' situation. It might be a whole different conversation we're having about those two.
That's also part of Patrick Mahomes' great, but part of Brady's greatness is that, the AFC East said uncle and just donated, well, we're not going to compete. I know they tried, but they were just so incompetent. They never really put forth any resistance. And part of Patrick Mahomes' second half may be that he has to battle great coaches. And
look at the coaches in this division.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What will it take, Sam, for Patrick Mahomes to overtake Tom Brady? Like, if you're like, okay, in the end, he's the consensus number one quarterback of all time. What did he do to get there?
I think he's basically going to be as good after 30 as he was before, because the thing that Brady is always going to have hanging over that argument is he beat him at age 43 when Patrick Mahomes was in his prime and the Super Bowl. And those of us who watched it, Patrick Mahomes is the last guy on the list we blame. I mean, he's playing with turf toe in that game, and he scrambled literally 497 yards worth of the field just to try and release passes in that game. I mean, I still think his actual greatest pass he's ever made is in that game. It was just that Darrell Williams took it off of his face mask and didn't catch it. It's still the most incredible play I've seen a quarterback make. But the reality is people don't look at it that way and say, oh, remember what happened in that game. They look at it and say, Tom Brady was 43 and he beat Patrick Mahomes in his prime. And so I think it's going to be, I'm not going to say impossible. Sports is sports, but it's just going to be it's a tough hill for him to climb to get to number one.
It's extraordinarily difficult. I'm glad you said that. It's going to be really, really hard for people outside of Kansas City to go, yes, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest ever. That's why I think it's a relevant conversation to have. And I think to your point about that pass, I agree with you about that pass in the Super Bowl against the Bucs. And I think it's like, if he does a whole bunch of other things, that will get dragged out. Right? Like when you succeed, it's like I've talked about Andy Reid. Andy Reid's Eagles days were used against him. But Andy Reid winning championships, the Eagles days are now part of the reason for people, certainly when they were rolling high, is like, well, yeah, but look at Belichick when he's not with Tom Brady and look at Andy Reid when he's not with Patrick Mahomes. Like, your failures become your successes. That play against the Bucs will be rolled out, and it'll be like, if he has, let's say Jeff's going to say he has to win 8 championships. Okay, let's say he wins 5 more championships. It'll be that, and they'll point to, and look what he did when he lost. It was still him. Those things that Bucs game, they'll find the parts that were great, and that'll be part of what celebrates him, part of how they celebrate him if he does it. Jeff, what do you think he has to do to be the consensus number one?
He's going to have to win more MVPs. That's the easiest route because Brady has 3 for his career, so that's a doable number. I think he'd have to get within spitting distance of Brady when it comes to championships. He'd have to win 6 championships just to be in that conversation. So he can not win as many because Brady went to a different team to get the 7th, but he'd have to win 6 with this one, I think, to have a conversation. And then he'd have to have one of those passing records that Brady, one of the major ones, with touchdowns or yards or whatever else Brady has. And he's not getting there because that's just a huge, huge mountain to climb. But I do think that, he can make a very interesting argument, a case for it. It's hard because Brady, for all the things he did, like Sam said, he was just so tremendous in the back end of his career. And with the Chiefs right now, like they're starting over pretty much. Like, we don't know what this team's going to look like this year or next year or the year after that. There's not like this core in place that you can feel really good about him getting on this kind of run. And so to go and win those kind of championships and do all those things, it's going to be hard to do. And the thing I'll say about Brady that really puts it over the top for him is you think about his last 4 championships. The first one came, he beat the defending Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks, who were going for a repeat. Second one, overcame a 28-3 lead, the biggest lead Super Bowl history to be beat. Third one, came into Arrowhead, beat Patrick Mahomes in his first season and was having an MVP season, and they were supposed to go win a championship. And the fourth one, he went to Tampa Bay and took a bunch of guys in COVID, took them out to the park and got them to learn how to play football and run the things he wanted to run. And they were sitting at 7-4 and had got beat by the Chiefs and went on a tremendous run there. And so his narrative is just hard to overcome.
Yeah, I think if Andy Reid steps away and he wins multiple championships with another coach, that's going to be, kind of like Brady's left the team. It's going to be like, well, this is a new regime, and he's still winning. I agree with Jeff. I think he's got to get to 6 championships. I think he's got to get over 80,000 yards. I don't think he has to top all of Brady's numbers, because if he pieces out at 40 and played 4 or 5 less years, that'll all be taken into account. But I do think the 6 championships is the target. I mean, it's either 5 and he eclipses Brady's statistical numbers and however many years he plays, and it can't be hanging on till 50, right? It can't be just dribbling numbers in there. But if he, I think it's either 5 championships minimum and he eclipses the yards and touchdowns, which is unlikely, or it's 6 Super Bowls and he gets in the neighborhood of those numbers. I think that's what it would take for him to be the consensus number one. People in Kansas City will take less. And I think he can do less than that and be in the conversation and have it be a debate at bars. But there's no debate. Brady's number one. We're talking about being number one. I think that's what it would ultimately end up taking.
I think the one thing to add to that real quick is just underscoring what Jeff said about the MVPs is an interesting aspect of that too, because Brady won 3 MVPs, but you see it, and he also finishes third, second, and second. And Mahomes has finished first twice. He can surpass Brady, winning 3, but he hasn't finished second. And I don't think he's finished in the top 5. Maybe one year, I think actually he finished in one other year that he lost, that he didn't win it. I mean, that he finished in in 2020, that COVID year, he finished his third. But he hasn't finished top 5 outside of that.
Yeah. That's an interesting point for sure. Listen, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Your parking lot says a lot about your business. Cracks, potholes, faded striping, damaged concrete, they can create safety concerns and certainly leave the wrong impression. Gann is ready to help you. Get started today with a free estimate at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lots, and our friends at Italian Delight. First restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. Go see our buddy Renee. He's got daily lunch specials starting at under $10, just a few miles east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave. You can order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.